Well, what's on your mind?
Well, I appreciate you having me. On the latest episode of Sacred Symbols, Chris brought up how he was playing the Halo Infinite, the tests run there, and you guys brought up how Sony's really lacking a first-person shooter, and you guys talked about how they could bring back Killzone or Resistance, and I think it's pretty clear that Killzone's dead. Whereas, so the logical choice would probably be Resistance to bring back, but Resistance has been, dormant for so long, it would most likely have to be a reboot. But with Insomniac so tied up with Ratchet and Spider-Man, which studio do you think would be the one to have to develop this first-person shooter for Sony if it is Resistance or if it's something else? So I would
Yeah,
love to hear your thoughts.
it's a good question. I think you're right, first of all, about kind of Resistance's fate versus Killzone's. And it's so strange because I think everyone thought Resistance was like the bitch during their concurrent releases on PS2 with Killzone, and then of course on PS3 with both of those series. So it's funny how like Killzone, it kind of went away, and following, of course, Shadowfall and Mercenary, which I actually thought. See, what's so funny, this is an aside, Sean, but Killzone was getting better and better. So it's kind of a shame that they're walking away from it, or they did walk away from it. But I agree that they're probably done with it. There are rumors that a shooter's being made at Guerrilla. Don't know if it's Killzone. It could be SOCOM. It could be anything like that. As far as Resistance is concerned, I don't know who would be the right studio. I think Insomniac actually could do it. They're pretty big. They obviously have two geographic locations, one in North Carolina, one in Southern California. But within those studios, they've sometimes made 4 or 5 games at a time. Remember that they would make like a Ratchet game, and they would be making Sunset Overdrive, and they would be making Fuse, and then they'd be making Treasures of the Deep, or was it Song of the Deep, and they would be making their VR games. So I feel like they could do it. And also the talent at the studio that led that series is still there. Marcus Smith was the director of Resistance 3, along with a guy named Drew Murray. Marcus Smith was the director of Ratchet and Clank, the newest one. And Drew Murray just left the initiative to go back to Insomniac. So who knows what's going on there? They also did Sunset Overdrive together. So I still think Insomniac would be the studio. Who do you think would make sense, Sean?
I honestly have no idea. I mean, I would love for Insomniac to be able to do it because Resistance 1 through 3 are some of my favorite games of all time. Resistance 3 in particular, I think, is one of the best shooters of that PS3 360 generation. And it's so sad that it was extremely underplayed and so many people overlooked it. It came out of that awkward time, the end of the 2011, going into 2012 was right after the PS3, the PSN outage. So it's so sad that that game just got left in the dust.
I completely agree with you. And of course, it's even sadder that the series has basically ended on a very poorly made Vita game with a cool character in like a New York City fireman, which was like the protagonist. But Burning Skies was obviously that really nailed that game's coffin shut, or that series coffin shut for a little while. I do wonder if they could do it. And I'm kind of racking my brain. I mean, you think about teams like, I don't know, teams that I'm trying to think of teams that Sony has relationships with that could do it. And it's like, well, maybe a team like Ilphonic could do something like that. And maybe one of these new teams that they're creating, especially in Canada, that seem to be shooter centric, maybe bring back Resistance. But I also think that it would be wise for those teams to investigate or invest in new IP. I would love to see Resistance come back. I think it's possible. I think Insomniac pretty overtly teases it constantly. And so I don't put anything away in regards to the comeback of that franchise or Sunset Overdrive, which was, I don't want to say prominently displayed, but easily identifiable in the new Ratchet and Clank game if you look through the menus. So I would say nothing's dead, and we'll see what happens. Sean, thank you for calling in. I hope you have a good rest of your day.
Oh, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. And so thank you so much.
Thank you. Be good. All right, Dustin, what do you make of Resistance coming back? We this comes up every once in a while. I'm a Resistance mega fan. I mean, people that have been with me a long time, it doesn't come up very much anymore because there are no Resistance games, but people that were with me during my IGN days know that was like my shit. I loved the Chimera. I loved the Resistance games, especially 2 and 3. I thought were just really special. Should it come back, and who should make it? I mean, what are your thoughts?
I think you're right that Insomniac could do it, especially now that you have to imagine that Ratchet is going to go on ice for a little bit. And so there may be some opening there where, they'd have some room to work on the game. I just wonder though, with first person shooters now being so multiplayer and competitive focused, if there's room, if Sony's looking at what they want to spend their money on, if they're like, man, maybe we should do something like SOCOM instead, where we can milk that a bit for microtransactions or something that they could more securely, not, I guess it's not a definite, but gain a multiplayer revenue stream. Um, I just don't know, dude. Single player first person shooters, I feel like, are in a weird spot. You see games like Wolfenstein 2 not sell super well. So it's unfortunate because I love single player campaigns in these games. I mean, luckily Halo and some others are still doing it, but it's clearly a dual focus on both multiplayer and single player. You see very few single player only shooters.
Yeah, mostly again from Bethesda, like you said, with id and
Right.
Machine Games. Yeah, you're right. I mean, they're in the A and double A space. There are more of them, but
Right.
that's not what Resistance is. So you're right that it is a tough place for them to be put. Even as a Resistance fan, I can't help but overlook the fact that it might just be a good idea for them to move forward. And I actually maybe should have said this to Sean. I kind of didn't think of it because he said it first, where I'm like, I'm not so sure Killzone's dead. Like
Yeah.
Killzone was always bigger than Resistance. I know that sucks for some people to hear, but Killzone was always bigger, always came from a much more important team. And I mean, internally at the time. And I don't know. They're making a shooter at Guerrilla. I'm pretty positive about that. We'll see what it is.